Welcome back, everyone. Now, it is the second Killer Comic Show of the week. Now, how amazing is that? I mean, we was on Tuesday night, myself and Andy. Tom was sunning himself in
I got sacked.
some British Isle somewhere. But this is the second show of the week. You've got myself, Charlie, Geeky Guy Comics. We've got the one and only Tom from Not Quite Mint. And then we have the Oracle himself. It is Andy from Perpetual Comics. How are we doing, guys?
All good here, brother.
I am very, very excited for this. This has been a long time in the making. Tuesday was great, but I think this is going to be a special show, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Look at that face.
He's ecstatic. Now, I know for a fact that we're not the only ones this excited for tonight, as I'm sure everyone would have seen the promos and the videos we've been putting out on Instagram and Twitter over the last few days. So there's too many people in the chat to go into it, and I just want to say a massive thank you to them all. But it is our absolute pleasure to be joined on tonight's show by one of the most recognisable and iconic illustrators of the past, well, let's say 20 odd years. With titles under his belt of like Losers, Witches, Batman Who Laughs. You've got the writer and illustrator of the upcoming DC Black Label miniseries, Batman One Dark Night. I think it is only right. Available at notquitemint.com. But I think before we get him on, if you haven't seen it already.
Boom.
Hey, how you doing, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on. How's it all going?
It's great. It's really going really well. I mean, I think Andy just mentioned it's been a while trying to get you on and stuff, because I think you're pretty busy now and again, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, the deadlines are pretty horrendous, but I'm hanging in there.
You have non-stop, like literally work for you must be non-stop, like full throttle. I mean, how do you even deal with it?
Yeah, you just get used to it. If you stop and think too much about the amount you've got to do, then that can kind of, sort of debilitate you a little bit, But no, you just keep going. Tomorrow's another day. If you have a good day, you have a good day. If you have a bad day, you have a bad day, and tomorrow's another day, and then you just keep plugging away. Basically, that's all there is to it. But yeah, thanks for the introduction. I've been lucky to have worked on a bunch of stuff, and sort of comics wise, arguably Batman One Dark Night is maybe the biggest of my career in lots of ways. So I'm super excited about that. It's also daunting, So I'm really working hard to make it as good as it can be. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've just found out last night that the first issue is due at the printers in 3 weeks, and I've still got to colour most of the issue. I've still got to finalize the dialogue. I'm considering lettering it myself after speaking to Cliff Chang. So I've got a busy few weeks ahead, but I'm very lucky. So it's an amazing problem to have,
Yeah,
I'm totally forward to that one.
I can think of worse problems.
Can't wait. Do you work best under pressure? Is that when you find that you get the best out of yourself?
I think for comics, yes. There's something about being up against it with comics, and in comics you always are up against it. There's always another page, there's always another panel, there's always another issue to draw. That kind of, there's a sort of rhythm to it. Well, once you're up against deadlines and you just have to churn the pages out, it can just keep going. Then you can surprise yourself with some of the stuff that you do. Where probably if you had too much time to think about it, you might not do in the same way. There's a kind of you sort of get into the rhythm's the best word for it, really. You kind of just, you're doing so much that the work takes on a life of its own a little bit. Whereas for other work, like movie work and everything, it's a much more relaxed pace, and it's better that way. You can consider what you're doing much more.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just different. They're very different kind of modes of work. But right now, I'm in pure comics crunch mode, trying to do as much as I can at all times. But yeah, as I say, it's a nice problem to have.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, because obviously we touched on it at the start, and like, obviously Batman One Dark Knight, you're writing it, you're illustrating it as well. Was it a fun concept to be able to do for DC Black Label?
Yeah. I sort of. So originally, Black Label was headed up by an old editor of mine called Mark Doyle. I knew Mark since his first day at DC. He was the assistant of Will Dennis, who was my editor on The Losers and lots of other stuff at Vertigo, and wrote my art book as well. We stayed good friends, and Mark was his assistant. So I met him on the first day at DC, and I was at a show in Chicago about 4 or 5 years ago, and we went on the first night, went for a drink together, and we were just sat at the bar, and he just said, what would you kind of most like to do? And I said, I'd kind of like to write and draw a Batman book. And he just went, approved. Right? So,
oh, mate, that's amazing.
It was obviously it wasn't approved. I had to write a pitch that got approved by everyone that needed to approve it. But that made me realize that there was an opportunity that I could maybe do, that I could take him up on. And met him again a couple of years later in New York. I was doing other stuff for a little bit, and didn't really have much of a concept for him, which I was disappointed about. But I was out there with my friend Lee Garbett, who's a good friend. He lives locally, and we got chatting in the bar. And Lee actually had the idea of the blackout, which is like the basis of the concept for the book. And as soon as he said, my original idea was just like a night in the life, like just what does a Monday night look like for Batman? What does a random Wednesday look like? It's probably a little bit different to ours, right?
Yeah.
But it was a little bit sort of I don't want to say wishy-washy, but when we came up with a blackout hook, I realized then that that's it. That's that night. That's what happens. And the title "One Dark Night" out of that, and that's a really sort of I felt like it was a really tight idea for a story, and it went from there really, and luckily, I emailed Mark like 2 days later. As I say, I was kind of disappointed that I didn't have more for him when I actually met him, but emailed him and he was just like, I love this. I'm going to put it in as is, and it went up the ladder to DC. Everyone seemed to like it. Everyone seemed to like the idea of me doing it. So and here we are. So that's how it went down. Really.
Cool. That's so cool, man.
Yes, when it, like say, he sort of went approved, and obviously it wasn't really approved, but in a little way, I was like, that was one of my proudest, professional moments, that I can just be in a bar and they'll go, yeah, you can do a Batman story, sure.
Yeah, of course you can. Do whatever you like, Jock. Just do whatever you like.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like whenever it goes up the line to DC Towers, and they're looking at the script and they're looking at the artwork and the concept, and they'll look through it, and then they'll get to the end. I'm like, oh, it's by Jock. Yep, that's fine. That's cool. Yeah, let's just put that through. That's no problem at all. I can't imagine them saying no.
Well, you say that, but like, I'm not really a proven writer. I think. People seem to like the way I draw Batman, which is lovely. I love drawing the guy. I think that had some sort of cachet maybe, that they sort of thought, okay, people like the way, I've been lucky enough to do a couple of big stories with Scott Snyder, which have gone down well. So I guess there was, they were sort of, they were hoping that it would make sense for me to do my own Batman book, and Black Label's a great home for that. They can support that kind of book, yeah, it's it feels like an amazing opportunity, and I'm just trying to make the book as good as I can make it. I mean, it's I can't believe it's October and the book's out in December, because I've been on this since February and I've only drawn issue 1 so far. So there's a lot. There's man, but it's 48 pages, oversized pages. The boards are much larger than normal boards. There's some over there. I'm just going to grab some. Hang on.
Go for it.
Oh,
Go for
wow.
So I'll show
Awesome.
you how big they are.
it. Awesome.
Charlie, make that band big.
Highlight that
you
guy.
know, normally
go.
a comic page is kind of, it's like 11 by 17. You know, it's kind of this big. But like this is the cover for issue
Oh,
1. You see
wow.
how huge,
wow.
huge it is. Can you even tell how big that is? It's
Yeah.
pretty big.
Wow.
So if every page is takes that a little bit longer. I'm putting everything I've got into drawing it, and you know, so it's been time consuming, but you know, I'm proud of it. So that's a lovely feeling.
Is Batman like now second nature to you? Like you could literally just draw it with your eyes closed, because obviously you just said he's like one of your favorite characters to draw. Is it just, can you just do it on a whim and just think, yeah, I'm just going to sit down and just?
I have drawn with my eyes closed. There's a little party game you can do, which is draw Batman with your eyes closed, and you should try it in a bar. It's you get all kinds of results. I've done it many times with my friend Ollie Moss.
Oh,
you guys know Ollie. Might know him from some of his Mondo posters, but yeah, he had this little Batman game, and we've done it many a time.
Well, yeah, that can you? We'll get you a drink at Thought Bubble, and then we'll play that game with you at the bar. Yeah.
You're going to regret that, because it's my blind Batman is ropey.
I am all over that. I cannot wait. Let's do it.
It's going to be. I'm really looking Thought Bubble. Really looking forward to Thought Bubble, because obviously we were speaking before. Like you came on and stuff. Like obviously with a few people dropping out of Thought Bubble. Are you still? I think Andy, you was going to ask. What was you was going to say about the?
Yeah, so you're doing a couple of panels at Thought Bubble, and obviously with Scott not being able to go anymore, I was sort of saying to the guys I was hoping that they were still going to go ahead, whether it would be without Scott or if they were going to get a replacement for Scott in those panels.
Remind me what the panels are.
It's who the hell are you?
Going to Thought Bubble?
It's who the hell are you? A Batman panel. You're doing that with Gail Simone, Joe Jones, and you were doing it with Scott. And then you also have a second one, which is Comixology Original Presents, and you're doing that with the great Mark Bernardin and Tula Loti.
Right. Yeah. Great. Okay. Thanks.
That sounds like news to you.
I think Scott and Gail both aren't coming, but I'm sure there'll still be a Batman panel, and you know, if I'm there, then I'll be on it. I'm planning on being there, you know. So yeah, I'm sure that'll be going ahead. And Comixology,
cool.
Yeah, you know, I'm good friends with Chip. We did Snow Angels with Comixology, and Chip Mosher, who runs Comixology, should be over with Will Dennis, who's been editing a lot of their books. So I'm sure that'll be happening too.
That was really funny on Twitter the other day. I think Andy posted something about Snow Angels, and someone was like, "Is it a collectible?" And you was just like, "No, it's something to read."
Something to read, yeah.
And it is. But it is. I think a lot of people just expect a comic. Yeah, we're gonna read it, pack it up, send it to CGC and stuff. And I think some people can get caught up in not just reading a comic and enjoying it. They want it as a collectible, and they want it as an item that they can look at. But yeah. Comixology is great.
Yeah, it's you know, it's people want different things, don't they? There's definitely the collectible market seems to be more apparent again. You know, I definitely, you know, when I go to shows, I remember those. You know, when I've been to shows, you know, do lots of DC signings and stuff these days, and people love slabbing books again, like they did in the 90s. And you know, it's not for me personally. I prefer to read a comic and roll it up and put it in my back pocket, kind of thing. But you know, it's fine. It's you know, it's just another thread to and you know, people will enjoy it in different ways, I guess. You know.
I mean, what we're probably going to do. We spoke a little bit about Thought Bubble, and we had Chloe on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
And that was great to get the insight of how Thought Bubble works and stuff, because obviously Andy's been to Thought Bubble before, and me and Tom and Andy, we haven't met before. We literally started. We was talking about before we went live. We haven't met, so when we get to Thought Bubble, it's going to be the first time we actually meet and end up hating each other and won't do this show again. But it'd be great. But yeah, Thought Bubble. I think you've been there quite a few times, haven't you? Yeah.
I went to this. I think not the first one, but I went to the second one. And I was immediately struck by how they look after the creators. How it's really comic centric as a show. And there was, you know, they just really looked after you, and it was really obvious it was made by people that love comics and want to support comics and support people making comics, and that's certainly with the bigger shows in the States, that's not really the case. Often they're more of a kind of media whirlwind, which is fine also. Like I say, it's just a different thing, but there's something really special about Thought Bubble, and I can't wait to go again.
I think for me, being this my first time, it really appealed to me that how intimate it is, and how, because obviously the big Comic Cons like MCM and NYCC, you don't really get that much time with the creators and writers. You're there, they sign, and you walk off. Whereas I think after speaking to Chloe, the whole thought process for that was to be able to speak to the comic creators and be able to talk to them on a level about what they're working on and stuff like that. So I think for me, that appealed straight from the off.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's very much one-to-one, personable than a lot of the bigger shows. Again, the bigger shows are great too, but it's a slightly different experience at Thought Bubble, I'd say.
So what Andy has been working on, massive credit to Andy. We're going to jump into the slides now. So Andy's put together, if you have caught the show, what we've been doing with the Thought Bubble, we've been doing like a creator spotlight. So right. you've technically been on the show twice already. But this is your first appearance. So obviously we highlighted some of your work and stuff, and we went into it and leading up to the Thought Bubble and stuff. But Andy has put together these slides.
Okay.
And Andy, do you want to take it away from here, mate?
I guess we can all jump in. I thought it'd be good to put these slides together just we can sort of have a look at some of the stuff that you've done throughout your career, and you can maybe talk to us about it and influence some of it. So that was kind of the thinking behind it. I know 2000 AD was where it all started. Well. So this was obviously your first interior work, I believe, and then your first cover work. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and how that all kicked off and started?
So, it's not too boring. So myself and my friend Dom Reardon, who's another 2080 artist who lives locally, we used to, when we were younger, we used to hang out and draw a lot, and we tried building up our portfolios to get to try and get work. We go to conventions. This was before the internet. We literally hitchhike to conventions and carry our portfolio under our arms and meet editors. Did that for like 5 years with nothing at all. Then it was towards the end of the 90s, and I met Andy Diggle. I think it might have even been 99. I met Andy Diggle at one of the Bristol shows, actually, I think it was. And and he looked at my portfolio and he said, "Yeah, I like it, but it's not for 2000 AD." But by this point, we'd had our son. I didn't have a job. I was kind of like, I was keen to try and make it work if I could, and I kind of pushed back at him a little bit and said, "Well, is there anything I'm suitable for? Is there anything that I could do?" And he said, "Well, I can send you a Dread sample script." And I said, "Well, yeah, that'd be great." And did a couple of pages of that, and he's since said that this is Andy Diggle, of course, who I went on to work with a lot. And he said since that there was just one panel of Dread's chin that was I guess if you saw it today, it's not a million miles away from the vibe that I've sort of got now. I think from the kind of way that I approach presenting stuff, and he just saw that and thought there was maybe potential and something in it. So he just phoned and just said, "Can you do a Future Shock," which is the one on the left there. That's not my cover, but my first interior is. So it was like a 5-page. I used to do fully painted stuff. It's 5-page fully painted little strip. And then he called and said, "Can you do 12 pages of Dread in a month and a black and white Dread?" And I hadn't drawn any black and white comics for years, and I just said yes, and did that, and it seemed to go down quite well. And I've never been out of work since. It's kind of how it went. So I was very lucky to meet Andy and hit it off with him. And that cover in the middle is my very first 2000 AD cover. It's incredibly weirdly Freudian, that one. It's a little bit. I mean, that rocket looks. I don't know why.
Suggestive.
I'm not sure how I didn't spot that at the time, but there we are. The original of that though is hanging in Duncan Fegredo's studio.
Wow!
I met Duncan shortly after, and we swapped some art, and he said he's still got that one hanging in the studio, which is
wow, that's cool.
Which is amazing. The third one was a random Dread Aliens cover. I did, I guess, a year or two later. I was only in 2000 AD, for a couple of years, though it feels like a longer time. You know, I think often when you're starting out, everything is new, everything's experience, and you're getting to know everything. And it feels like I drew for 2000 AD for a lot longer than I probably did. I think it was only a couple of years in the end. But you know, I grew up reading 2000 AD. Dread's my favorite character. You know, it was my first work, and I always try and do stuff for 2000 AD if I can. And in fact, we've got a little something for Thought Bubble that I've just sent off, which isn't new art as such, but it combines two of my favorite things, and I'm sure they'll be announcing that soon.
Oh, wicked! Look,
Lovely.
there's an exclusive for a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
What was the first book you ever got, Jock? When you was
Say
a kid,
again,
when
sorry?
you grew up? What was the first book you ever picked up, like comic book wise?
Well, when I was very young, I had just like a couple of random Superman annuals, you know, but there was like lovely art by Kurt Swan inside. There's a Solomon Grundy story. And back then I really sort of, I wanted to figure out how they could draw it so well, how they could make it look or seem like a reality, you know. But I knew that it was a drawn thing, but it felt like a real world that I was in and reading. That felt like magic to me, you know. And I can remember being young and sort of wanting to figure that out. But it wasn't until I picked up 2000 AD, which I was quite late coming to it. A lot of people, you know, picked up very early, but I was probably about 13, 14, and I was already drawing a lot anyway. And when I picked up 2000 AD, like that was the moment I was like, okay, I want to draw comics. Like this is it. This is as far as I'm concerned, you know. But you know, with hindsight, we realized kind of how lucky, you know, people of my generation were to have 2000 AD at that time, because in the 80s, and this was probably late 80s, so maybe a little bit before that, the early 80s, you know, the talent that they had working in 2000 AD was just unbelievable. But when you're a kid, you don't sort of think, oh, they've obviously got the best writers and artists. You just see this stuff that like, blows your mind, and I just couldn't get enough of it, and I was immediately just, you know, rabidly hunting down back issues and getting whatever I could, and being, you know, utterly inspired by all these amazing artists. So it was when I picked up 2000 AD really that I decided I wanted to do comics.
That's wicked, mate. Have you still got those original books? You got the Superman annual?
No, but I bought the annual off of eBay a couple of years ago to look at it, because I hadn't seen it for like 20 years or something, and it was great. I was chatting to Lee Garrett around in the studio today, funny enough, and he's been buying a lot of old Marvel comics that he bought when he was young, and there's something really, because, you know, I've been doing this a long time now, and I still absolutely love everything about it and feel very lucky, but there are times when, you know, it feels like a grind. You've got to come to work, and you don't always feel like you want to draw. You've got to just come in and do it, and that's part of the profession, you know, and that's fine. But it's really good picking up something from when you're young that kind of almost, you know, nostalgia is not quite the right phrase, but there's something about it, and it reminds you like why you love it, and like, what when you were younger, what made you feeling inspired and so excited about the possibilities of it all, you know. And that's a really kind of magic feeling when you know, to feel sort of creative and inspired in that way, you know. That's kind of what you want drawing, really, that you want to feel, you know, like you're about to, you know, like anything is possible, you know what I mean? Not to be too cheeky or
of course,
but you know what I mean?
Of course.
You do. You sort of want to feel that feeling like it's alive, and you know, and it's all there for the taking, right? You know, and you know, I sort of find picking up an old, I've got like, you know, the old Judge Dredd Titan books, and I love looking at those, and it just gives me a little spark of and a reminder of that kind of little special thing that I'm sure we've all had, you know, picking up a comic at some point when you're younger, that you just think it's kind of like, you know, alchemy, you know, like how is this? It's magic. I keep using that word, but it feels like that. You know, it feels like it's just a really so. I can't remember what the question was.
But a great answer anyway. I like that you said about it, like feeling, going back and reading it and feeling like anything is possible, and then being part of the industry. That's absolutely amazing that you feel like that, mate.
Yeah, I've always tried to. I mean, I don't know whether it's just because the way I'm wired, but or that it's but I've always. I've never really got very cynical about it. I've always try to. I mean, I'm writing and drawing Batman right now. I mean, it's incredible. I feel very privileged to be in that position. You know, I've worked very, very hard as well to get here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important not to get cynical and not to get kind of, you know, too sort of ground down by. And it's not just comics, you know, just life. I mean, you know, we've been in lockdown for 2 years. It's been a nightmare, really, hasn't it, for everyone? You know, but there is little bits that about life in general and everything else that, you know, that keep you going and keep you feeling good about stuff. And that's what I try and focus on, and that's what I try and put into my work, really.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
I think that is awesome. I've just got a quick question from ABZ's comments in the chat. He said, British X-Men and Thor Weekly, when it came out in the UK, blew my mind as a teenager. Those were my first comic reads.
Yeah, that's it. Just these little nuggets that when you're young you see, and it feels like you've sort of, you know, when I first picked up 2000 AD, it felt like I'd like found out a secret or something that no one else knew about, you know, and I discovered it, and I'm sure that's what lots of people felt like, you know, all the good stuff has that kind of quality about it.
I mean, you were talking about like you sit in your studio and in like lockdown and stuff. Did you ever, during that time, think, I'm not at work, I'm literally, because I assume your studio is like near your house or it's attached to your house and stuff like that. Did you ever get to a point where it was like, this is becoming quite tedious, I'm in lockdown and yet I'm still in one room? Because I guess as an artist, you put yourself in the zone and you kind of focus on everything, but you've got the ability to walk out and get fresh air and stuff like that. Did it ever like kind of grind you down thinking, I'm either going to put everything I've got into working during lockdown, or I'm going to kind of take a break and just take a step back for a few?
Yes, that's a good question. There's lots of answers to that, really. The first one is that when lockdown happened, I suddenly became acutely aware that I live the life of someone in quarantine anyway. Like immediately, like I like you say, I come. You know, I've got a lovely little studio, and it's down the bottom of our garden. Sort of, I have to kind of. We've got a separate little back garden. I come across a little pathway, and we've got an extra bit of land, and my studio's down here, and the woods are out at the back. So it's a nice spot. But I realised that I'm in lockdown most of the time. But the flip side of that, though, and luckily I was still working. I had plenty of work coming in. I had plenty on my roster for the next couple of years. So, you know, I know a lot of people, you know, have not been in that situation over lockdown, you know, and I felt, you know, very, you know, lucky that I didn't have to worry about that side of things. But I guess I sort of noticed that because you're right, I do spend most of my life in this room, you know, but actually that means that when I do go away or I go to a convention or whatever, that I realize that you get a little reset or something. You get a bit of objectivity about what you're doing. You get to sort of speak to other, you know, your friends that do the same thing as you do, and you can chat about it, and you know, you get to meet your readers that and you get a sense of what you do and what it, you know, does for them, which is really lovely. And I did miss that a lot, you know. I didn't realize it took me by surprise actually that I didn't realize that I was going to miss that so much. But I realized that those, you know, every couple of months I'd you know, travel somewhere and go somewhere, and I realized that was a really, you know, sort of lucky good thing, you know. So yeah, you know, I'm sure like all of us, there's points in lockdown where it's definitely hard to keep going, and you know, saying about feeling inspired, you know, it's pretty dismal, wasn't it, at times, you know, just in general. And again, the way I'm wired, I sort of have to try and feel like everything's okay for me to kind of like, you know, feel you know, kind of energized or whatever about drawing, and you know, definitely times that it, you know, I sort of felt it a little bit more than I might normally because it was lockdown. But again, I had to sort of try and be objective about it all, and it's like I get to come and draw comics. At the time I was drawing, I pretty much drew all of Snow Angels during lockdown. You know, I started drawing it right at the beginning, and I finished in like February this year. So you know, that was my sort of my lockdown project. You know, that's what I was doing. That's what I was focused on, and I just tried to stay focused on that really. And again, you know, try and, you know, be positive about this mess of a world that we've been in for the last 2 years, you know.
In some ways, it did kind of feel like a movie or a comic that we was living. Do you know what I mean? Because it didn't feel real, and you're kind of looking at it thinking, is this actually real? And then it was the actual shit show that we were living in. To be fair, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's the weirdest. Yeah, I think we all grow up with sort of accepted constructs and systems and ideas, and that, and a lot of that has come crumbling down. I feel in the last few years, and I think it's left a lot of people sort of feeling a bit adrift and unsure where to kind of hook themselves into, kind of thing, because it's also sort of seemingly random and seemingly a bit messed up. But anyway, listen, we're here to talk about comics, aren't we?
Yes. So as you are talking about that, so obviously in the studio, Comics and Pop has got quite a good question. What music or show, movie inspires you to draw?
Lots. Sorry. I'm really rubbish at those kind of questions. I like them all for lots of different reasons. What inspires you to draw? I listen to a lot of music and I do watch a lot of movies, and I tend to have movies that I've seen before on while I'm working, so I don't have to watch them with my face. I can just have them on in the background.
Yeah.
That's how I like to do it.
Yeah. Music. I play drums, and I was a hip hop kid when I was young, so I got into James Brown and funk music, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and I listened to a lot of that while I'm working. I don't know, all sorts. Anything and everything as well. That's a rubbish answer, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not at all. It's basically it's the answer to the question. There's too much. There's too much music. There's too many shows to watch. There's too much. Too much of everything.
Well, I think we'll know exactly what music you like when you're on the dance floor at the after party for Thought Bubble, Jock. That's when we'll know what songs you like.
When you're doing karaoke with us.
Yeah, we're doing karaoke. That's it.
When you see me doing a windmill, that's when you know
exactly.
the song's working for me.
Absolutely. So from 2000 AD, you then forayed into Vertigo Comics, and you were working on The Losers with Andy Diggle, who you met through 2000 AD. 32 issues. And I believe you've done the cover for all those issues.
Yeah. I unfortunately didn't do all the interiors because the monthly schedule was just. I mean, it was both of our first. Actually, no, Andy had done a Lady Constantine miniseries, and I'd done one issue of Hellblazer as like a warm up. But it was essentially our first stab at doing monthly comics, and 22 pages a month is tough. So unfortunately, we were lucky. We had some great fill-in artists, but looking back, I kind of wish that I was able to draw all the issues, but time didn't allow it.
And this obviously was made into a movie as well. The poster's obviously on the right-hand side. So did you guys have much input into the movie? Sort of unofficially, really, but so early on, it was a writer-director called Peter Berg that was going to be. He did the first draft of the script, and he was going to be directing at the time. I've stayed good friends with him since, and worked on a lot of the movies that he's worked on. And we met him in London, like early on, like 2005, something like that. Went for a few pints and a curry and chatted about it all.
Love that.
And Jamie Vanderbilt, who ended up writing the script, we met him a couple of times in London and in Los Angeles as well. The movie happened in 2010, and I think Sin City had come out in like maybe 2008 or 2009, and I feel like that movie made Hollywood realize that you can be, up until then, most comic adaptations were they were tweaked a little bit or kind of changed or whatever. And I think Sin City made people realize that you can be a bit more faithful to the source material, and hopefully it'll work. So it seemed to hit at a nice time in that way, because so me and Andy went to the set in Puerto Rico, and they'd obviously stayed certainly visually very, very faithful to what we had done. Like for example, like Jensen, played by Chris Evans. I thought he might wear the little John Lennon glasses, but he, when I turned around, and it was actually Zoe Saldana who played Aisha. We were chatting to her, and they all called each other by their character names, even when they were offset, sort of thing. So she and Zoe just went, "Hey, Jensen," and like I turned around and you know, he even had the same facial hair. He'd grown the little goatee and had these long
Oh, wow.
sideburns that I just drew, you know, whimsically to make him try and look kind of visually, you know, different to the rest in the comic. And like Chris was the one that, you know, they were all such an amazing. I mean, you look back at the cast now and it's insane. You know, Idris Elba, Zoe Saldana, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Chris Evans, Oscar Haneda, Columbus Short. You know, they're all amazing. And but Chris walked towards me and put his hand out to shake my hand, and I swear, like he was the one in a way that he just embodied Jensen. He was the closest to our character, and it was like having, you know, something that I'd only drawn literally come to life,
real life,
and shake my hand, you know, and that was surreal. So yeah, it was, you know, it was an amazing experience. You know, again, looking back, the cast is insane, you know. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I've stayed in touch with him and we chat every so often, and he's well up for doing another one. You know, it's a long time since the first one, so I don't know if we'll ever see it. But if they did put it together, I mean, surely that cast alone would bring a lot of people into the theatre. So
absolutely,
yeah, you know, and the losers and the comic. But aside from all that, you know, the comic in general was, you know, it was, you know, trial by fire. Really, that first cover there, that was the first ever image I did on using Photoshop, for example, and I learned every month, you know, on full display on the comic. Me and Andy put everything we had into it, and you know, it could have gone horribly wrong. DC took a real chance on us. You know, we were two completely unknown people, and they gave us our own series, but people seemed to really like it, and you know, again, like here we are, sort of thing. Like if that hadn't worked out, then I wouldn't be talking to you now. I don't think so. So the Losers is really special for both of us. It's like a sort of, yeah, it was you know, like you shouldn't really have, you know, like a favorite child, you know, it's like that. But the Losers is you know, when I look back on it now, I can look at it and think, oh man, that's not well drawn and that's a bit clunky here, and I would do it differently now. But for what it represents, it's a super special one for us.
I think it is
so cool.
Time next time.
Yeah, I know. Talking, I mean, it is shocking, isn't it? Look, absolutely shocking. But I think this is Losers is quite iconic, and I think you've touched on that as well with the cast that starred in the movie and stuff. I think if it's very well known, and I think this kind of you and Andy Diggle did a superb job on it.
Well, thank you, thanks. Yeah, I mean, again, we were sort of. Yeah, it was trial by fire. Like we just went for it, you know. We just completely went for it, and luckily it all worked out.
Well, I think we're all
your
glad
2000 AD, your 2000 AD covers, they were sort of painted normally covers.
Yeah.
So I guess you moved into, you couldn't do 32 painted covers, I guess.
No,
so that's why you.
In fact, my editor Will Dennis didn't like my painted covers. So he had seen Lady Zero that me and Andy had done at 2000 AD. I think Garth Ennis showed him it, which was great. And I met Karen Berger, who was the boss of a Virgo Bristol show. And to cut a long story short, you know, she seemed keen for me to work on something. And then Will Dennis got in touch and said, you know, do you want to do The Losers with Andy? And I was like, you know, funnily enough, at the time, you know, if I was going to be working for Vertigo, I didn't think I'd be doing like an action book. You know, I was thinking like Sandman or, you know, something like that. But it was a bit left field idea. But I was like, yeah, of course, you know. But Will didn't like my painted covers. He didn't think that was the right look for this sort of book. And we'd started working on it for a few months. You know, we talk on the phone a lot. You know, sort of every couple of times a week, something like that. And one of the topics of discussion was who would do the covers. You know, and we'd throw names out, and he was like, maybe this guy would be cool for it, but he's busy or whatever it is. And anyway, like eventually, Will just said, "Oh, you know, I went into Karen's office the other day, and she just said, why doesn't Jock do them?" And I was just like, "Will, like by this point, you know, we're friendly enough where I just said, Will, can you just give me a go? Like, let me do like some sketches or something. If you like them, you know, great. If you don't like them, no worries. But let me just have a stab at it." And he was like, "All right, sure," you know. It was another nice moment, you know. It was I can remember I was out, but I came home to a message on my answer phone. I think I'd sent him six sketches, and he just sort of left me a message saying, "Listen, I don't know which ones that I love the most, but but you're hired, kind of thing, you know.
Nice.
And I think 5 of those sketches and ended up as final covers on the Losers comics. So
Wow.
yeah, but you're right. You know, up until then, I just unpainted stuff, and I just got a Mac, and I was fiddling around Photoshop, and you know, I was into sort of title design. There's a guy called Pablo Ferro who did like the Bullet and Thomas Crown Affair intro sequences. And I sort of wanted to bring that kind of you know, Casino, Ocean's 11 sort of sharp graphic quality into it, which I guess Will wouldn't have known, having seen kind of painted 2000 AD stuff. But as soon as I sort of did some of that as sketches, I think he sort of realized kind of what I was going for. And again, you know, it all kind of, you know, it all worked out. And I'm really glad that I did do that, because I feel like I'm a big believer in, you know, with comics, I think the best comics are often, you sort of recognize the hand of the writer or the artist kind of making them. You know, that's what makes comics so good. Is you know, it's like a good, you know, a good band or a good singer, or whatever. You know it's them, and that's what you like about it. And I sort of feel like the Losers wouldn't be quite the same if you know, it still feels like mine and Andy's book, even though we had other fill-in artists. But I think if I wasn't doing the covers, it might have had a different thing going on. So I'm pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. It's almost a pivotal moment in your career, I would say, going from that sort of painted form to what you've done for the Losers.
Yeah, I mean, it just, you know, Photoshop's amazing, and it just freed me up. You know, stuff that I'd spent hours and hours trying to figure out how to do with paint, it was suddenly a little bit easier with Photoshop. And you know, that's not to say that there's a magic button. You know, it's just another tool, but it definitely helped me, and I loved, you know, Will was just like, you know, up until this point, DC hadn't really let you put the logo anywhere but on the top of the cover, you know, because that's the way it's wrapped in the store. You need to see the logo. And he just said, you know, we're becoming more open to design stuff, and I was like, can I, you know, fuck around with the logo? And he said, yeah, go for it. And I started putting it, you know, all over the place, and like on the floor with the guys walking across and stuff. And you know, it was again, it was kind of it all worked out.
Well, you must be doing something right, mate, because you seem to have like free reign of the stuff that you kind of do, and it's like all about first impressions, and you seem to have made a few.
For thanks. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I feel lucky. But as I say, but you know, I worked. You know, my God, you know, I didn't have work for 7 years, and I used to work on my hands and knees on the floor, you know, trying to build up a portfolio. So I've definitely, you know, thank you for saying that, but I feel like it is, you know, there's it hasn't come out of nowhere, you know.
No, credit where credit's due. Like, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
hard graft has paid off, and now you're sitting on a Thursday night show with us three. Look at that.
Yeah,
that is it.
1-1.
Look at that. Who would have thought that, Jock? 20 years ago, you'd be sitting on our YouTube show with us three.
So you started writing about the Losers, then you end up doing a show with 3.
Sit with the Losers. What's next up, Charlie?
Next up, we've got, of course.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can not recognise this particular cover. I would say you're probably tired of talking about it, Joe, because I've heard you at a few conventions and stuff, and lots of questions get asked. But it's iconic, and I would say arguably the most iconic modern cover that's out there. From your perspective, you know, was there a moment when you were drawing this where you just thought, you know what, I've nailed this? And did you expect it to be as popular as it is?
No, and if you've heard me talking about it, you probably know that's the case. But I never get tired, because it's you know, is this? Yeah, when I was I had no idea when I was doing it that it was gonna have the sort of legs that it has. I thought it was all right. I remember sending it to Lee again, and it was pretty close to being final. And I was like, "Is this a bit boring? You know, like it's just his head. It's just like, should I crop into his eye and mouth or something like that? Just try and make it a little bit more interesting." And he was like, "No, you're fine. You know, keep it as is." And yeah, no, I don't know. You know, I feel like it's going to be on my gravestone. You know, it's like I had no idea at the time, but the fact that people seem to like it so much, I just, you know, you just feel very lucky. You know, I don't know what it is about it. But like as soon as I posted it online, and this was like 2011 or 2010, even 2011 maybe, you know, and on Twitter, and you know, Twitter's a very different place then than it was now.
Yeah.
And my mentions was just like this for 2 days, and like that was I knew that something was up, sort of thing. And But when did I sort of realize? Probably when I got like the tie and the socks from DC, sort of thing, and the beach towel kind of thing.
I was the wallet.
The wallet. Yeah, you know.
Did you ever get the T-shirt from Primark though? That's the real question.
No, I mean I've got a bunch of T-shirts. Yeah, you know, but no, I would never. I'd be, you know, as it's. I'm still proud of it as a drawing, as an image. You know, I think it looks better on a comic cover than it does on a beach towel, I have to say. But like, you know, yeah, no, you know, amazing. And like, you know, I think the issue's worth quite a bit now, like a couple of hundred or something. And it's not like a number 1. It's not a relaunch. It's not a first appearance. It's apparently just because of the cover art. And you know, that's amazing. I think that's yeah. You know, how often does that happen?
How long did that take you to do?
Oh, I don't know. A couple of days, probably.
You can tell.
It's insane.
I would say that this cover and the first issue, the Black Mirror, are arguably the most recognizable covers from that run. And obviously, this was you working with Scott Snyder.
The other ones are all right, but some of them, I think, I feel like as a kind of group, like looking at them now, I wish they were a bit more cohesive somehow. They're all a bit random, I feel, and there's a couple of Francescos in there as well.
Yeah,
but actually, my other favorite is probably the last one, which is on the bottom right, because that one, you asked about how long things take. That one, my editor Mike Martz. So this run of Detective came out just before the relaunch of the New 52, and then when they were renumbering everything as number 1. So I think we had to ship the last issue slightly earlier, or there was a double ship or something. And Mike emailed me like at midday my time, saying, "I'm really sorry, but we need a cover like today. You know, can you do something?" So I did a sketch of that's him punching like that. I did a sketch of something that I knew that I could do quickly. I did the sketch in about 5 minutes, sent it off, and he said, "Yeah, that's fine, go for it." And I drew it in 45 minutes, and I coloured it in 45 minutes, and then sent it off. But I still really like it. Like, it's a shame you've not got that one bigger, because I still really like the drawing, and it was in fact the only original art that I had left from the cover run was that one, until someone offered me an obscene amount of money just about 18 months ago to sell it. So I let it go. But I still, you know, I sort of like it because it's so immediate, but it's kind of effective. So yeah, and it's often the way. Like some of the other ones, I've probably spent like so much longer with, but they don't do anything, you know, for me really in the same way. So it's you never know, you never know. And yeah, and the Joker wasn't one that I thought nailed this. You know, I just thought it was okay and sent it off.
Yeah. What about working with Scott Snyder on the Black Mirror? I mean, what was that like? And obviously, you guys have stayed friends and worked again on numerous other books. So, how did that come about?
Yeah. He called me out of the blue. I wasn't actually planning on doing any Batman or company stuff at the time, because the Losers movie had just come out, and me and Andy were going to do Snapshot. We had that all kind of lined up, and so it sounds a little bit frivolous, but I you know, I didn't really want to do a Batman book at the time. And Scott called me out of the blue and said, and I'd heard of him. I'd heard of American Vampire, and I knew that was good. And I just had a really good feeling about him. You know, he called literally out of the blue, and I said, "Hey, you don't know me? This is Scott Snyder, and I've got this Batman story." And it was just before San Diego. I think it was the Comic-Con. I think it was the Friday before, and then we ended up meeting the next week and went to a bar in the afternoon. And he told me about the story, and I was just like, you know, yeah, I'm in. You know, it was one of the, when he mentioned James Jr., you know, the baby from Batman Year One. I was like, why has no one done anything with that character? That was the kind of like, you know, aside from meeting Scott and loving him and loving his idea for the story, that was a little click moment. I was like, that's a really good little book. So but yeah, you know, he's brilliant to work with, very open to ideas, but I never really need to give him any because he's such a good writer. Very collaborative, lovely human in general. He's very thoughtful, and yeah, we've stayed firm friends and done a bunch of stuff, and are still doing new stuff now. So yeah, again, like I feel, yeah, the Black Mirror, you know, it's become an evergreen book. You know that phrase where it's just still on the shelves. I've been lucky to have a couple of those, you know, over the years, and yeah, you know, sort of, yeah, I feel like I'm being a little bit kind of like cheesily like happy about everything with everything that I've done, because I have been very lucky. Like, and Black Mirror was another turning point, I guess, in my career in lots of ways, because it brought, you know, my work to a lot more people than might have seen it before. People really liked it, you know, and sort of being such a brilliant story, it's kind of stayed as a sort of you know, people still bring it up all the time and just say it's my favorite Batman story. So it's
it's definitely my favorite Batman
Yeah.
story.
Wow, really?
Definitely, 100%. Yeah.
It's very hard to be objective about your own stuff, you know.
Your own stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So I think Scott wrote a great script, but I can't read it myself and sort of see it, you know, in the same way.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, it is great, and I'm like now I'm looking at that Batman cover in the bottom right. You can see that.
You can see how quickly it was done.
No. Not that. You can, like, that took you what, an hour and a half, 90 minutes to do that.
Was you blindfolded?
And yet you wouldn't notice because like the way that you do your art and stuff like that is just, it's impeccable, and you've got every right to be happy and proud about everything and I know you kind of get a bit awkward when we say how great you are and stuff, but I'm going to keep saying it because it's hilarious. But it is like,
thanks,
the stuff that you've put out is incredible, and I think,
thank you. I appreciate
like,
it.
Looking at this, I think Batman, like the one that you're writing at the moment, I'm ecstatic to see what that's going to be like.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I feel like certainly the art is probably the best I've ever done. It's kind of hard to be objective, but I've really enjoyed the larger pages. There's more in them. I was starting to feel a bit confined on the smaller pages, and I've given it everything. So
tasty.
I think it's definitely gonna fly off the shelves, so that much I know. But yeah, Vertigo again.
Yeah, Scalped. Again, another one of my favorites. I think it was 60 issues, and I think you've done all of maybe 4. You didn't?
I missed 4. Yeah. Scalp was. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? Like that was one of those projects I felt like I was lucky to be doing the cover for such an incredible comic. You know, Jason Aaron and R.M. Guerra. I mean, talking earlier about sort of how comics can feel like a reality. Like, to me, that comic is so good. You know, it's the reality that they kind of got out of the world that they created was amazing. And Guerra, an incredible artist, and Jason's writing was really, it was top notch. And I just felt like I had to try and, you know, keep up on to that level on the covers, really. But yeah, probably the longest run I've had, and maybe will ever do. You know, thinking about it. Again, this is Will Dennis, but was the editor, and Will brought me on board. And,
And do you have you heard any rumors that it may be optioned for TV or movies?
Yeah, they made a pilot. They've actually shot a pilot.
Oh wow!
Was it the set? This was years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone from that show is watching, and I apologize, but apparently it wasn't very good, and nothing came of it. But it's a real shame because it's like it's right for. I mean, it would make a brilliant show, I think. But yeah, this was probably 10, 15 years ago that the pilot was made. It was quite a while ago.
Oh wow!
Nothing came of it.
Yeah, this is the run that I've been trying to collect all the issues for, and I think I've maybe got 6 or so to go, and then I can tick that off my Jock list. So it's hard trying to pick them up. I do have one.
if I had a run here, I would offer them to you, Andy. I might have some in boxes somewhere in my cupboards. If I find them, I'll bring them to Thought Bubble. Email me the issues that you need, and if I find some scalp, I'm sure I've got some scalp somewhere. Email me the issues, and I'll see what I can do.
He knew what he was doing there, Jock. I tell you,
exactly.
he knew
That's massively
Is this where one of you says, I'm sort of missing that Batman black and white statue, actually?
But the noobs put a good question in. Does it ever frustrate you as an artist when a cover can only be sold at a specific convention? For example, the Superman Son of Kal-El issue 1 NYCC, or do you like the exclusivity of it?
Yeah, that's a good question because, essentially, no, not really. I'd rather it was for everyone, but there is a collector's element to comics, and that seems a little bit more rife again, at the moment, and and it drives demand as well, in some ways. But no, in an ideal world, I'd rather anyone could get anything. But I think we're all aware of the way collectors markets work, and unfortunately, the exclusivity of stuff. I've done a lot of work for Mondo, the poster company, and their licenses only grant them short runs of prints, so they sell out incredibly quickly, and everyone complains about not being able to get them. But then there's something really special about maybe picking up a poster that you've been trying to hunt down for ages, and then you find it and you get it, and so there's a sort of just what I said earlier. Really, I feel like there's room for everything, really, and that seems to be happening more at the moment. And I'm sorry if you couldn't get a Kal-El book. I'm pretty sure we'll have them on site called comicsketchart.com. Is that right? Is that what they're called? The comics, yes, CSA. Yeah. Sorry, Doug.
I'm giggling.
You'll be able to get that cover. Basically, you'll be able to order it online at some point. I'm sure they're just recovering from NYCC at the moment, but I'm sure it'll be online.
I mean, because obviously it is a great cover. Like it is awesome.
Oh, cheers!
And it is great. It does look good of the way. Like, is it hard to do some of the colours sometimes, like fitting red in? Because obviously that's quite a prominent colour. Is it kind of hard to work around that?
When you say prominent, you mean the entire cover is red?
Basically, yeah.
No. I mean, that was my choice. I just I try not to do too many covers because I feel like I've done so many over the years. It's hard not to. There it is, comicsketchart.com. There you go. I did it all wrong. I've done so many. It's hard not to start repeating yourself, and I really don't want to repeat myself. So and with something like a Superman cover, I sort of wanted to. I find him quite hard to draw, actually. So I'm not so suited to him. So if I do it, I want it to sort of feel hopefully a bit iconic and a bit kind of sort of timeless. I guess is kind of what I'm going for, because I feel Superman's that sort of character and he can sort of support that. And but no, the fact it came out so red was just me playing around with color ideas, and I just like the look of it.
It does. It looks awesome. So yeah, well done, mate.
Thanks.
Oh, there we go. Look, Andy's got this behind him as well. How many copies of that have you got, Andy?
Yeah, a couple. So yeah, the Art of Jock is one of my favourite art books, and my only question about this book is, when are we going to see the second one? Is there an opportunity we'll get another one?
No, I've been meaning to speak to Insight Editions actually and say, do you want to do in like maybe soft cover and expanded? So we have an extra few years in there. And in fact, there was a French publisher who was going to publish it, and that was going to be the plan. We were going to put some more projects in it to expand it a little bit. But I haven't spoken to them to see. I don't know. Would you rather see a whole another new one, or this one expanded? Like, I feel like if it was in paper, because it's quite a big, heavy book. Maybe if it was in paperback, it'd be a bit more accessible. But this came out 5 years ago, so I guess.
I like the thought of a second book.
So
yeah,
I
there's at
think-
least 5 years of extra work there.
Yeah.
So that's
There
a
is,
definitely a
but-
second book.
But that was pretty extensive, you know, and there's a lot of stuff in there, and maybe a second one would have to focus on, rather than just doing like a smaller version of what I've done for the last 5 years. Maybe, in fact, I was chatting to another publisher about doing just a comic one that has way more layouts and process stuff and things like that in it, which might be a cool thing to do. But yeah, it's just time. You know, that book, I'm again massively proud of that. I put an awful lot into doing it. I sort of had sign off on all the designs, so I was yeah, you know, put an awful lot into that. It was in collaboration with Mondo, who I mentioned a minute ago. You know, we wanted to put out something that was, you know, had a really high production value and was a nice book to have on your shelf. So yeah, I'm still luckily quite proud of that, and just the fact it happened. I mean, again, like, you know, who gets to have their own art book, you know, to that quality? It's yeah, I'm feeling quite lucky tonight. Thanks, guys. You're reminding me of stuff.
It's like, this is your life in comics. That's kind of what it's like. But if
Jock,
anybody
bring
does
in
want
the
to
positivity.
absolutely, if anybody does want to pick this up, they can go to Insight Edition's website, or you can go to Amazon or your local bookshop or comic shop, and I'm sure that they'll have a copy of it. But I would highly recommend it.
Highly recommend, 100%.
Thank you.
Definitely. But yeah, we like, honestly, on this show is you know, credit where credit is due. Like, honestly, like if you weren't that good, we'd tell you. We would tell you. We pride ourselves on, like, we've had comics on this show where we're like, it's not all that, but I can't honestly say anything about this. Like, you must. Do you ever look at some of your work and think, oh, I've smashed the ball out the park with this one.
I've smashed it.
I've absolutely killed this one. This is awesome.
No, no, not really. No, you know, I have some pieces that I sort of know they kind of look okay. You know, that's about as far as I get. You know, there's a couple of things from One Dark Night. I think one of them's been online. It was the page I was looking forward to doing. Is like Batman jumping sideways across a building with a bat symbol up on City Hall. And I was pretty pleased with how that came out. And then when I coloured it, I was really pleased with the colours, and that kind of informed the way that the approach that I've got on the whole book now. You know, no, you know, there's a few of some Mondo posters that I'm very proud of. You know, but no, I never sort of like pat myself on the back. Really, it's, if anything, unfortunately, as I don't know how many artists you've had on, but I'm sure we're all pretty similar. It's the opposite, really. You know, generally, I'm not very happy with what I've done and wish it was better. You know, so that's a bit morose. There you go. I'm just balancing out all the positivity.
No, but that does
reality.
that does sound like the general consensus of like the artists that we've come on. They said that they're never happy with what they're doing,
never,
and they find themselves as the biggest critics. Who would you say is your biggest critic other than yourself?
Who is?
Yeah,
You say. My wife Jo's has no interest in comics at all, so like I've learned not to show her anything that I do. Because, like, there's too many times where I've been working on something and I've been quite into it, and she'll come in the studio and I'll go, oh, you know, what do you think of this? And I'm sort of in the mode of like enjoying it and
she shoots you down.
No, not like, she's lovely, but she just sort of goes, like that, and I'm like, oh no. So, but the flip side is that if I do something and she likes it, then I know that it's probably okay, you know. So she,
yeah, it's good. Yeah.
It's a good thing to be grounded in that way.
That's awesome.
I mean, like, to have your own art book is a pretty much achievement. So well done on that.
Hey,
speaking of Mondo,
there we go. It's like it was a perfect segue there, wasn't it?
It was like, yeah, it's almost like I thought this one through. So it's obviously you've done the comics and your art book, and what the posters that you've done in conjunction with Mondo have been pretty spectacular, and they sell out in minutes if anybody's tried to pick them up. I've selected a few of my favourites, and I just wondered if we could just maybe go through them and give me your thoughts on the thought process, and maybe even kicking off with, I know obviously Dread's your favourite character, and that's one of my favourite posters, but if you just want to run through those three, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I love working with Mondo. They're yeah, in lots of ways. You know what I was saying earlier about kind of comics, there's a grind to it. You know, you're constantly working, but with something like a poster, you can, you know, some of these posters, if there's not a deadline, I can have them sitting for like a year, you know, and I just pick
Wow.
away at them and move stuff. You know, there's always a more kind of intense time where I'm doing the actual drawing, perhaps, but then I'll just have it sat, you know, and I'll open it too often and play around with the design and move the type around, and you know, it's a much quieter pace, and I really enjoy it because it means that I can put a lot more into them in lots of ways. So yeah, they probably have a slightly different look, I'd say, to some of my comic stuff, but yeah, so yeah, Dread was an obvious one. That was one of my earlier ones, but because I'd worked on the movie, they asked if I wanted to do the poster. Bruce Lee one that's I've probably been waiting to do Bruce Lee posters since I was about 14.
Yes.
And, it was something that I always wanted to do, and Mondo never had the license. And I heard Rob Jones, who's the sort of art director there, we were at San Diego Comic-Con, we were all having a beer, and I heard him say like, "Oh, you know, we've got the Bruce Lee license," and I was just like, "Please, can I do them? Like, I've been wanting to do these my whole life." So, and Enter the Dragon was the first one we did, the approval that, you know, the Bruce Lee estate, who essentially approves any kind of, you know, products and merchandise and everything else and likenesses and things like that, is essentially his daughter Shannon Lee, and Tim Weish, who worked at Mondo at the time, who was the legal guy, sort of told me the story. Like, I sent in the final art for this. It was available at one of the first Mondo cons that they did in Austin. And they sent in the poster to the Bruce Lee estate, and the reply was, "Yeah, that looks like Dad," and that's still one of the nicest things that I've heard. You know, I was like, oh, you know, so yeah. And since then, I've done the Big Boss and Fist of Fury. I've got Game of Death approved at the moment, but unfortunately, my comics deadlines are holding that up, and I've got a design for Way of the Dragon as well, so I'll hopefully get to do all 5. Wow. And Iron Man 3 that's for IMAX actually. People seem to like that one, but I between you and me, I think that's a terrible poster, to be honest. I
like that.
Don't tell anyone.
Two really good ones. I love these two. Yeah, I did a bunch of sketches. Some of the sketches I think were a lot better than that one, but that's the one they chose. And you know, it was an amazing privilege to get to do the official poster for the IMAX release of Iron Man 3. But again, between you and me and the internet, I sort of wish that it was one of the other designs.
Do you enjoy the larger scale of doing posters?
Yeah, and in fact, I did my first couple of posters before I even held a real Mondo poster in my hands, before I even saw them in real life. So I approached the first two almost more like a comic cover kind of thing in design, and more than that in like the scope of them, like how much depth there is within the image. And then when I finally, I got some comps of my first 2 posters. It was Zombie Flesh Eaters and Last House on the Left, and when I unrolled them, I realized like they were like artifacts. You know, they were really beautiful kind of objects. You know, and they are. The printing. You know, they're all screen printed by DL Screen Printing in Seattle, who are one of the best, and they're just lovely items. You know, comics I think should be a bit disposable, and like it's fine to slab them, but I feel like they should just be read and given someone else to read. But there's something about these posters, and when I saw that for the first time, I was like, I can. There's an opportunity here to do much more than I am doing. And then the next poster was my Dark Knight trilogy one. And if you compare the sort of the depth within the image of the Dark Knight one to the first 2, you know, that there's a lot more. There's a lot more in the Dark Knight one. You know, because they're 3 foot by 2 foot. You know, 36 by 24 posters. They're huge pieces. So you can get a lot in there. And again, yeah, it's just a very different kind of, you know, gear to work in, but I really enjoy it.
That's awesome.
Definitely so. I mean, these are awesome. These are great, and I think, as you said, like, and it's clear to see from that Batman drawing that you showed earlier, the bigger the better, basically.
Well, yeah, you know, I'm quite loose, and I like the way ink flies around, and I make a bit of a mess, and I've sort of tried to make that work for me. So the bigger scale means. Because you know it can be quite risky. Like when you've penciled a nice page, and then I just get a big fat black marker and start kind of like, you know, putting it down. It can be a little bit risky that you might mess it up basically. So the bigger scale is a little bit more forgiving, and I'm really appreciating that about it.
Oh, great. Just
more. Ah, there we go. So yeah,
more.
So actually you asked me about so I still really like the Apocalypse Now poster and Shaun of the Dead and Halloween. I think is maybe one of my better ones as well. And the Thing's all right as well. See, I'm all right with these because I had months and months to sort of just figure them out and tweak them and put, the Apocalypse Now one wasn't for Mondo actually. That was a private commission for a little group of people. I mean, do you want me to talk about them specifically, or any you want to ask about, or?
No, do you know what? I don't think a lot of people maybe appreciate that you've done a lot of this postal work, and I think that's the reason why we sort of put this slide together, is just to give the people that are watching an appreciation of the different sort of styles and the different stuff that you've been involved in. What is your favourite one, and have you got any of these in your own house in display?
We've got zombie flesh eaters up in our hallway, which the parents love. Just because that was my very first poster for Mondo. But no, I don't have anything else of my own up in the house. But I sort of like them so actually that last house on the left on the bottom right, you can see how the scale of that is completely different to say something like the Halloween one above it.
Yeah,
it's much flat. It's more like a comic cover essentially, and the Halloween one was kind of I enjoyed that. It came together really easily, and I thought it was like evocative of the film. Shaun of the Dead one I like because it's sort of, if I tried to do that, which I think all good movie posters should do, which is like they sort of promise you what's in the film, but a little bit more. Like a good illustrated poster. I feel sort of, like we all know, Drew Struzan and stuff from the 80s, and often the posters were better than the films, like in some of the cases, because they should sort of. And I also grew up, I'm quite old, so I sort of grew up playing like a ZX Spectrum, and there used to be a computer magazine called Crash, which is about the Spectrum games, and Spectrum games looked terrible graphic-wise, but they had an artist on staff called Oliver Frey that did all the covers and all the illustrations inside, and he just made the games like look like they felt in your head, even though the graphics were really simple. And I've loved that when a good illustration like expands on what the thing is. So Shaun of the Dead, I tried to sort of like, sort of get the basic kind of theme thing, but turn it up to about 15. I love
that one. Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead for me is awesome, because if you wasn't a zombie apocalypse and it's in London, you could picture someone doing that, like standing on top of an iconic red telephone box going,
yeah.
What am I going to do now? Like, what am I doing?
it actually started life as a Dawn of the Dead poster for the remake, Zack Snyder's remake.
Right, okay.
And Rob Jones said we could do like a variant for Shaun of the Dead where he's like on a London phone box, and I was like, that's a great idea, and it ended up just being for Shaun instead. So
yeah, I love that one as well.
It's great. It is great. And then obviously
it's a shame they're not, talking about the size of them, that it's a shame they're not bigger on the screen, but if people get a chance and to find
Andy, you could have done bigger slides, mate. Seriously.
Yeah, I know. Next time, and do you know the funny thing is, I did actually think about that when I was pulling these together, because whenever I was making them a little bit smaller, I was like, people are not going to be able to appreciate the detail on this, but I'll remember for next time. Or you can go buy them, everybody.
Go buy them. But then the thing as well, Jock, is that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, that was. They asked me if I'd be up for doing it, and if you Google the Thing poster online, like there's a million, both amateur and professional ones. So I was and it's one of my favorite films, so I kind of didn't want to do it unless I had a decent idea for it, and the drawing is kind of. Again, you can't really see it there, but it was quite a large drawing, and it's kind of like it was born out of the idea of the old sort of almost Victorian circuitry drawings where they have like a human body and they'll show all the circuits or the nerves or whatever, It was born out of that kind of look, and and I actually drew it by blowing ink through a straw like a 6-year-old would do in school, sort of thing. And it just pushed the ink sort of in a really natural way, and I kind of formed the figure out of that.
That is
Also
so cool.
with that one there, that's the variant, and in fact the stars in the sky, all the constellations, about 4 or 5 of the creatures from the movies of Rob Bottin's effects are kind of hidden in the constellations, which probably goes unnoticed, but they are in there. There's like the head thing with the tentacles that's stuck on the ceiling, and there's the teeth, the stomach is in there. Again, if you find a larger version of it online, then you see if you can find the creatures from the movie hidden in the stars. So yeah, so it's that kind of thing that you can do with posting, with the extra time you get to work on this stuff. You can indulge yourself a little bit and put in little Easter eggs and little changes, and it's I really enjoy doing them.
You had one job.
One job, I know. That's the thing. As soon as this is finished, I'm going to look at a bigger version of that just to work out all the constellations.
Yes, same.
A few years ago, I did put on Twitter like the reference photo where I showed which creature was which. But I mean, good luck finding that, because it was years and years ago. So
Andy will find it. Don't worry, Jock. Andy
I'll find it.
Andy will find anything.
Andy will find it. But I mean, so Ex Machina, for me, this was, and I think Leon Russell hit the nail on the head, is one of his absolute favourite films. The concept art for Ava is just beautiful. She's so different from other movie robots. Can you talk a little bit about her creation?
The main thing, so I worked with Alex Garland on this sort of very early on, before the film was even greenlit or happening really. I'd worked with him on Dread, and worked well together, and he just called saying that he had this script and would I be interested in helping design Ava. And the main thing really was to try and make her feel unlike other robots that we'd seen. Like, that was one of the big things. Like, if you made her, there was lots of sort of iconic robots that are clearly in culture, and if you just even do a little nod towards any of them, it's amazing how it just coloured the whole thing. Like, if you made the obvious one would be gold, something looked like C-3PO kind of thing, and if you like, so the one in the middle there, which is sort of, it's not really how she ended up looking, but that's that's when we developed, like, missing the torso and a more empty look. Then you could see the kind of sort of the machinist quality to her legs. But if you made that white, it looked like there was a famous Bjork video directed by Chris Cunningham called something. It's got love in the title. I'll remember it in a minute. But it was a really at the time, it was a really progressive and kind of rich kind of look way that a robot might look, and that was stolen essentially for AI, that Will Smith movie. They were all kind of they all had this sort of white kind of anyway. My point is when you did certain things, it just reminded you of other stuff that we'd seen, and so a lot of the work was trying to develop something that looked different, essentially. And went through a bunch of different ideas. To begin with, I thought she should look much more human and just have little weird kind of just stuff that threw you off a little bit, that so maybe let you know that she was possibly a machine. But Alex was quite right. He just like, no, let's because it's almost like removing the middle. If you, like, when he first said it, like, on paper, that sounds like quite kind of like 2000 AD in the late 70s. Like, if there's a robot, that it would be like a shoulder unit and a hip unit with like a thing. And I thought, really, that's pretty sort of on the nose. But then I started drawing it, and it was like, oh yeah, of course. And the whole point of the film is that you're supposed to, she is clearly a machine, but you somehow are allured by her, and you sort of fall in love with her, or at least the character within the film does, and that was the trick. If we could pull that off, then she was successful. And the VFX guys who really ended up designing her final look and the way that they brought her together, Double Negative, headed up by Andrew Whitehurst. I sort of did this stuff with Alex, and I didn't see him for about 2 years. And the next time was in the edit suite up in London. and they were editing the picture at the time, and the editor had a button on his desk that had the VFX, and then removed them, so you could literally have a scene playing and you'd press a button and you'd see her like fully VFXed up. So Alex put a scene on,
Wow,
and it was Alicia in her kind of, she wore like she did have some of that stuff on her, but it was like a bodysuit, and she had like a skull cap on, and then the editor like pressed the button, and I mean, it was, you know, like, it was another moment where I was like, holy shit, you know, amazing. So it's absolutely amazing, and I was suddenly like immensely proud that I had even the smallest kind of part in this, and you know, and the film went on to win an Oscar for VFX, which is obviously a lot of that is just what she was as a character and as an entity, and brought to life amazingly. You know, like the VFX was so clever that like, you know, Rob Hardy, the DP, Alex said, just shoot it like a normal film. Like, you know, I feel like recently things like you know, the doubles in this new Star Wars movies, you know, like Leia and Grand Moff Tarkin, they sort of, the way it's edited, they're building you up to sort of see the face, and then the face is revealed, and depending on your point of view, you know, it's either successful or it's not. But like Ex Machina was filmed just as if she was sort of incidental, and to me that sold her even more. You just saw her wander through the frame, like blurred out of focus in the foreground, but that's, you know, that's VFX, and it was very naturalistic, and I think that's what made her partly so successful. But yeah, you asked about things that I'm proud of. I'm massively proud to have been involved with that film.
That's so cool. Dean Egg are absolutely amazing. I've been lucky enough to done some work with Dean Egg myself, and they are incredible. They are actually an incredible company.
Yeah,
They're
I mean,
so
and to go from like this, what you see now, then 2 years later to see her walking, you know, around, it was, again, it was another. I've never had anything like that. I was just like, holy shit, that's incredible. Wow. You know, it was a real lovely moment, and the film was terrific. And yeah, that's another one I'm very proud of.
So cool, man. What a career.
I've been really lucky. I know. I sort of got into this to draw comics, but I love movies as much, and I'm really, I'm really pleased that I've got to do that stuff as well.
And 2000 AD brought out a portfolio of the of all your concept art as well, which is absolutely stunning. So I'd highly recommend that to anybody to go get.
Thanks, Andy.
He's your wingman. He's your wingman.
Yeah. I think he's pitching.
I'm not in commission. I'm not in commission. So speaking of fantastic posters, I have all of these, and they take up a lot of real estate. And my wife was very willing to. She says, "Yeah, go get them framed up and get them up on the wall." And I stuck them up on the wall, and she was like, "Oh, they look absolutely beautiful, but you know, they're taking up a whole wall."
Yeah, because that I mean, they're 3 foot high, so I guess that's about 8-9 foot across if you've got all three. But thanks for having them, Andy. I appreciate it. No,
they're absolutely stunning. So do you want maybe just talk about how this came about? And I'm guessing you're a huge Star Wars fan.
Yes. Though I was never one of those kids that had the toys. Funnily enough, again, I think Jedi was the first. No, maybe Empire Strikes Back was the first one I saw like on television one Christmas when I was 10 or 11 or something like that, similar to 2000 AD. But as soon as I saw them, I was like, you know, this is the good stuff. Mondo asked if I'd be interested. I feel like they'd already sort of, Ollie Moss's and Tyler Stout's trilogy posters are stunning, and again, I sort of didn't want to do them unless I had a kind of some sort of take on it, you know. And eventually fell on the idea of showing. It was while chatting to Ollie, funnily enough, about them, of showing iconic scenes that we all know, but from a completely different angle that we haven't seen before, you know. And the A New Hope, the first one, was the most. You know, that's when that came about. You know, we all know that trash compactor scene, but if you look at the movie, you never see it from that angle. So that was my sort of concept for them all, really. You're same with Empire. I had either that or or him falling down in Hoth down into the lit kind of circular kind of never-ending chasm. And the Jedi was the hardest one actually, and it's my least favorite of the three, I would say, in some ways. But the speeder bike. One of the reasons I chose Endor is because they've all got three distinctive colors as well, so you get this trilogy kind of happening. But I thought it would be a no-brainer to show the speeder bike from a different angle. But it's hard to be objective about your own stuff. But I prefer probably the first one myself out of all of them. But there we go.
Is there plans for any more? Is there the Optimus has just said there about Mandalorian?
I did a design for The Last Jedi because I worked on the movie. I did costume design on The Last Jedi, and Eric at Mondo asked if I wanted to do a poster, and I did do a design, and it turned out to be exactly the same essentially as a shot that Rory Kurtz did for Mondo. So we canned it, but I did put that online as well. You can find that. And well, they did just ask me about the prequels. I never thought I'd want to do them, but I don't know. I watched my daughter's 9, and we watched the Clone Wars, and they really made they brought the prequels to life in that animation. I think more than the movies in some ways, and I have got a sketch for a Phantom Menace poster sat in my drafts, but
yes.
whether I ever do it, we'll see. But who knows? I mean, I owe Mondo 5 posters or something like that, and I've owed them 5 posters for about 3 years now. So time is against me, but I would love to do more. I'd love to do The Last Jedi because of my connection with it. And then if I did that, I'd probably end up doing Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker as well. So I don't know. We'll see.
The Mandalorian would be a good one to do, I think.
I had a poster for that as well. Funny enough, that was going to come out for the end of season 1, but it didn't work out for one reason or another.
Next time.
That's a shame.
Yeah, next time.
Next time.
The sketch for that is online. You can find that as well.
And we've spoken about Snow Angels, and I think Connie Dalton says Snow Angels was one of the comics that got me into comics earlier this year. I'm excited to get my hands on a physical copy.
Oh, thanks, Connie. Thank you. Snow Angels with Jeff Lemire. Me and Jeff have been talking about doing something together for since 2013, 2014, something like that. And we've been talking about Snow Angels. It was about 2014 actually, but he kept flip flopping. Because he writes and draws his own stuff as well, and he wasn't sure whether he wanted to draw it as well. And he was flip flopping a lot. And then at one point he decided that he was going to draw it, and that's when Scott called me. I'm sure they chatted about this in advance. And then Scott called me and asked if I wanted to do Witches, so I ended up going off to do Witches. So Snow Angels has been a long time coming, really. Jeff's a terrific writer, amazing guy, and I was really pleased that we finally got to this because I started doing drawings for this 5 years ago when I was on Star Wars, which was 2015. I started sort of doing designs and ideas for this, and then finally the schedules kind of lined up, and it came out from Comixology. We're still coming out now. I've still got one more issue to color of this as well as Batman, and it comes out as a physical book through Dark Horse next February, I think.
February, yeah. And I posted up on Twitter about the fact that it's only 79p for the first 4 issues
Apparently
on Comixology. So if anybody wants to go check it out,
79p. That's cheaper than
bargain.
Most things.
Probably about the same price as a Freddo now, isn't it?
But this is good though, because sorry, Mark. This is good because obviously Connie Dalton, she's like I said, she's interested in the process stuff because she's new to the world of comics and stuff. So hearing you talk about Snow Angels being in the process since 2015, that's awesome. Like for us as like veteran comic readers, for someone new coming into comics, that's awesome to hear that even though you've got these backlog of art that you kind of might think that as the time has passed, we're now in 2021 and this is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky. I work with friends basically, and we try and line stuff up together, and schedules sometimes work and sometimes they don't, yeah, it's just the way it goes. I mean, it's a nice problem to have, not having enough time to sort of get as much of the stuff as you'd like out, but it's just the reality of it, and like right now I'm doing One Dark Night up through to, well, certainly early to mid next year, and I can't even think about doing anything else, before then. So, yeah, that's just how it goes.
I'd highly recommend it. It's superb. It's fantastic.
And as the noob has said, it's cheaper than a Mars bar.
Is it really? A Mars bar's more than 79p these days? Wow.
Well, I guess according to the noob, and I'm assuming he knows his chocolate bars, and yeah,
Depends if you have any deep fry.
If
you have any
one
deep
thing
fry?
I know about the noob is he knows the price of chocolate bars.
He can probably tell you that at Thought Bubble as well. He'll have a list.
Yeah,
of all
he's coming
all
along
the
as well.
chocolate
Yeah.
bars. But yeah, no, Snow Angels is great. Jeff Lemire is great. An artist called Jock's all right. So definitely pick it up for 79p.
Yeah.
This is
So, yeah.
one I'm really intrigued about, Jock. I'd love to find out more about this. I think it's due out in December on Comixology.
Which December? Not this December.
It says release December 31st. That's what it says on League of Comic Geeks. Is that wrong?
You might see a little preview in December. Is that
Oh,
what you're
okay,
seeing?
okay.
Maybe.
Maybe.
No, this is another one. I've been talking to Scott about this since, I don't know, 3 years, maybe 4 years. Yeah, it's not really a comic. It's a prose story, and I'll be illustrating, doing spot illustrations throughout, but also designing or the whole book essentially. So probably, I'm not sure whether I will literally set the type, but I'll be giving the book a whole look and giving like a master few pages of what the whole thing's going to look like. Yeah, we were going to be doing this at a book publisher for a while, a different market. But Chip at Comixology, he's a really good friend, and they're doing brilliant stuff over there. And Chip started talking to Scott about doing stuff, and Scott asked if I'd be up for doing it with them, and I was totally happy to do that. So yeah, it's I like it because it's a bit different. It's not really a comic. It's a prose novel with illustrations and a kind of a sort of look that will hopefully set it apart a little bit.
And that's
I'm
definitely
really
not.
looking forward to it.
And it's definitely not for December 2021.
It's definitely not. It's the final. It's definitely the final.
20
Is definitely not coming out.
2022?
I'll tell you that.
Right, okay.
I mean, I can't be sure, but I think
I seen a bit of panic on your face. It was a panic look as if, have I missed something?
Yeah, when? Yeah, no, we're gonna. It's already in the books. So when I finish Batman, I think April, I'm gonna be working on this. So yeah, so it's, the final thing isn't out for a while. Sorry if that disappoints you, but
Yeah.
there we are.
Well, Connor's already adding it to her never-ending read list.
Thanks,
and,
Connie.
and she's really enjoying the Comixology stuff at the moment,
Yeah,
which is great as well.
It's a really good way to one of Scott's things was if you subscribe, you can pick up so many comics, and comics are expensive obviously these days, and it's a really good way to be able to get a bunch of stuff for not too expensive a price. So yeah, I'm glad
definitely.
we go into it.
But no, this is I'm looking forward to this in December, so that'd be great.
December 2022, right?
2022, yeah, there we go. So we are coming to the last of the slides, but obviously we've spoken about this one, but this is going to be. I'm very much. I'm going to be honest. There's quite a few Batman comics and books out there at the moment,
Yeah.
and this one I'm very much looking forward to. After the way that you've described it and stuff like that, and with like mentioning that one of these pictures is like one of the best ones that you've done, I'm ecstatic to pick this up. I really, and the fact that it's the magazine size ones, because obviously you had the Harleen that was quite big. I'm just looking forward to seeing more of your work on a bigger scale, if I'm honest.
Thanks. Yeah, I just got. I did a cover for Cliff Chang's Catwoman Lonely City, and I just got the comp copies. There, where is it? There it is.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I've never actually seen one of these before. I've never seen what size they're at. So I've been working at the larger size doing the art, but I've never seen.
That looks awesome as well.
They're lovely. Yeah, I mean, I probably said everything about it earlier. Is there anything you got any questions about it? I can respond to rather than just me sort of blathering on again about another project.
It's only 3 issues. I know that you said that you'd just done drew issue 1. Do you have a plan ahead for issue 4, 5, and 6?
So it's just 3 issues.
Yep. But will there be another arc, do you think? After?
We'll see how this one goes. I think I mean, what would it be called? 2 Dark Nights? I mean, there's really...
Another Dark Night?
One Dark
Not
Day.
so
I
dark.
felt like the Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead thing. Maybe One Dark Day. I don't know, but then there's no pun in one Dark Day, so who knows? I don't know. I'm just focused on this one right now. Well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if it goes well, I'd love to do more, but let's see. Let's see how this one goes first.
I mean, we mentioned this on the show. I think we highlighted this a couple of weeks ago when we did your creator spotlight. But for me, this main cover, the fact that you've just created this outline of Batman without really drawing Batman, going into like the art of what you've done with Batman before. For me, this is amazing. Like, and the fact that we're getting treated to the oversized comic of it's incredible. Is this like, would you say you've done some of your best Batman work in this comic, because obviously you're writing it and you're doing the artist as well? Do you think you put everything you've got into it?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Again, it's hard to be objective. Like, my worry now is like you guys have picked this up and go, you said this was some of your big stuff, best stuff.
A lot of question now, mate.
But art wise, it's definitely. So here's an interesting thing. Like I think I said this to someone else a couple of weeks ago. Like I sort of feel like in general of a day, you have maybe about 20% of your brain where you're kind of like worrying about it, or you're thinking this could be better, or could this be better, or should I have done this like this, or whatever. So there's always this kind of questioning element to when you're working, probably in anything, but I think particularly in creative things. After the Dark Knight, that's quite good.
That's Andy's wife, by the way. This is Lady Perpetual.
Yeah. Thanks for letting him hang those Star Wars posters, by the way. There's always a sort of an element of yourself that's kind of questioning what you're doing, I think, and I think that's healthy. I think that's good, and I think we all have it. But with this project, all of that has gone on the writing, because I'm not as experienced with the writing. So the drawing has just been a joy. I've just enjoyed drawing it, and that's that's not always the case. Sometimes it can like we talked about earlier, it's never quite how you see it in your mind's eye or whatever, and you're not always satisfied with what you've done. But with this, again, I don't want to sort of make false promises, but I feel that it's probably some of my best art that I've done, and I'm definitely putting more into this at the larger size than some other stuff. That sounds terrible. That sounds like I'm choosing this over. That's not really what I mean. I've really enjoyed. I've put a lot. I've put a lot into this, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
You'll have to come back when it's out and come on the show when we review it, and we'll give you an honest. We'll give you an honest review.
We can sit you down and go, what was you talking about, Jock?
Yeah,
seriously, what was you doing? But I mean, a page like this is incredible. Like, it really does. You've kind of got everything here. You've got Gotham. It's just. Do you kind of have a thought before you put your pen to paper and stuff like that? Do you kind of have like your mind's eye and you think, like, this is how it's going to transcend? This is like the perspective of it and everything, and then it kind of comes to life on the page, or do you have a vision of it, how it looks before?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, I'll see if I can find the layout for that Gotham splash. Just give me one sec. Yeah, well, before I grab it, sort of do that when you're breaking it down, when you're laying it out, and in the story, I think that splash is like the double page splash. There is of Gotham is like page 4 and 5. So I had 3 pages running up to that, and then it's like you open the, and it's like Gotham City, and so that's the shot of Gotham. Let me just find the layout. Hang on.
Talk about a segue. This is it's honestly like we planned this.
Segue.
It really is. Look,
That's one cool
Room tour.
skateboard.
it
Room
is.
tour.
Yeah, so these are just photocopies, so they're not very good quality, and they've got scribbles all over them. But these are layouts. Where are we? See that? Remember bat rope. You know, these are important things that you need to remind yourself.
Always remember your bat rope.
But like, so yeah, there you go. So that was you know, this would have been done in like 90 seconds or something. But like that's the sketch. Can you see that?
Jesus,
Yeah.
90 seconds. That would have took me 90
just
days.
super quickly. But you just try and just get a sense and a feel for what it might look like. And like the reason I'm showing that one is because it pretty much stayed. You know, you were asking about the perspective and stuff. I still wanted to have, you know, some sort of lights in the foreground. You know, definitely kind of a sweeping kind of thing to the city. The horizon line back here as well. You know, so you know the final piece stayed kind of fairly similar to that. So yeah, you know, but you know, again, talking about doing a cover in 45 minutes, that page was on my. Do you want me to find the original for that as well? I've got it.
Yeah,
here.
if you can do, go for it. Go
mate.
on.
I was on my drawing board for like 4 days, which is the longest I've spent on anything for so long. It took forever, but I loved it because I was, again, this was back in sort of March. So deadlines weren't an issue. I had as much time as I wanted to do, and I wanted to indulge myself and make them, you know, killer pages kind of thing. So, so I was just noodling with like, if you sort of look deep into the background of the city, there's quite a lot going on there, and in the distance, and I just adored having the time and to just to sort of fiddle around. Let me just see if I can find the original.
This is incredible. Like this is awesome.
Just talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah. So music.
So Declan Horlock, yeah, amazing seeing this process firsthand. This is
Oh, here
great.
it is. I've got it. That was pretty
And he's
quick.
got it. There we go.
And he's got it.
I like that guy.
I like that guy.
Jesus.
Oh, come on.
It's too big.
Oh my god.
My goodness.
So,
that is awesome.
I love doing all this stuff.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
And then sort of coming into the foreground and bringing
The
out
intricacy
details and
is just
stuff.
insane.
It's incredible.
So yeah, you know, I've to answer your question, yeah, I've put everything I've got into it.
You're not bad at what you do, are you, mate? Really?
Page. Sorry, say again.
You're not bad at what you do, to be fair.
Unbelievable,
Thanks,
absolutely unbelievable. I think if that doesn't, you know, entice people to pick up the book, then I don't know what will. But everybody that's watching is going to be watching on the rewind. Make sure that you do pick it up. You can pick it up at notquitemint.com and any other reputable LCS. That would be awesome to support Jock, because it looks as if it's going to be an absolute banger. And I think it's fair to say, Jock, you've put a huge amount of work into this, so it's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the support, guys.
But honestly, with your Batman book, I think it's true what Connie says. I feel like that's the type of spread I'd open the comic and spend 10 minutes just staring at the page, trying to find every detail. I think after what you've just shown us, that's what I'm looking forward to. Like just literally looking at every page, reading the story, but then going back over it and thinking, have I missed anything? Have you put anything in there that subliminally you've kind of put in there for the reader to go back and have a look over? And I think after what you've shown now, I'm more excited to read this comic.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Well, enjoy the first issue, because after that it's a blackout and there's not as much detail in a blackout.
Just complete black page.
Batman's eyes.
But that's all the slides. Like Andy's put together some sensational slides. It's been an hour and 45 minutes. It's been absolutely great, Jock. Thank you so much for coming on. I do have one, like, after we spent on Batman and stuff, who would you say, what is your favourite Batman movie?
Batman movie. Probably The Dark Knight, but Batman is my least favourite thing in it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Right, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'd like it. Great, Michael Mann crime, believable city, but it's not my favorite way Batman's presented. I would say.
And if you're told you've only got one character that you can draw for the rest of your life, what would the character be?
See, I'm just going to have to go back a little bit old school and say Judge Dredd, actually. But maybe that's because I'm drawing Batman every day right now. You know, probably.
I was going to say you're sick of him.
I might miss him and I want to draw him again. But Dredd was the character that I grew reading. I read growing up and was the character that made me want to draw comics. So he's still kind of, although these days it was very awkward to draw Judge Dredd. There's a lot going on with that costume. When I was young, I didn't care. I just enjoyed like indulging and drawing the costume. But I think I might regret saying that if I actually had to draw like 50 pages of Dredd these days.
Do you reckon you'll be doing any? So obviously, when you get to Thought Bubble, do you reckon there'll be opportunities to get a sketch done?
That's what
I don't know, to be honest.
You're gonna be too busy.
Well, I spend all my days in here drawing. When I go to conventions, I actually prefer
just want to go,
to see people and relax and try and enjoy it. And I don't know, catch me in the bar and I'll try and do a little Batman sketch or something. But officially probably not. To be honest. Like I'm happy to sign anything and do all that stuff, but I'm not going to be drawing as well, because why would I get on a 6-hour train to go and sit down somewhere else and draw when I can do that
and
here?
do it all the time.
That sounds a bit, obviously it's lovely that people would want me to do that, but unfortunately conventions for me, I try and make them time off rather than time on.
No, of course.
We'll definitely be taking you for a pint. We'll definitely take you for a pint. That's a certain
deal.
Or 10.
Or 10, yeah. But I mean, it's true what Triple G said. Like, looking forward to meeting you at Thought Bubble. Just need to pick what I want signed. Like, this is, I think, after seeing what you've done, like, I think we're all going to be going back through our comic books and think, well, we're going to take this, and this. So it's definitely going to be looking like you're going to have a lot to do. So yeah,
bring as much as you want. It's absolutely fine. It'll be great to see everyone.
And Connie, I think you've got a new fan here in Connie. She said, "I've never read a Batman comic before. Do I need prior knowledge, or can I use it as a jumping in point?"
Yeah, no. One of my favorite types of comic, and what we tried to do with the Losers, for example, was make a comic you could give to anyone, not someone that needs to know about the backstory and the 20 years of continuity about and I'd say with One Dark Night, no, you don't need to know anything really. It's just a night in Gotham, and hopefully you get to understand who and what Batman is, pretty early on.
That sounds absolutely awesome. I'm sold.
100%.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, guys.
100%. Honestly, this has been incredible, and we're all massive fans of you. Andy's a huge fan of you, so it's our absolute privilege having you on. But what's next in the pipeline for Jock?
Well, Batman was that title someone else said? That's pretty good. What was it?
It was Andy's wife, and I think it was.
That's right. Yeah, that was great.
After the Dark or something.
After the Dark. What was it? Is that what it was called?
All I can see is just Perpetual Comics, so I'm going back through it.
Anyway, well, yeah, no, I'm deliberately not making many plans, really. I'm just I want to focus on this now. I'm doing Book of Evil with Scott. We've still got more Witches booked in as well for after Batman. I've got these Mondo posters to get to, so I'm saying that I'm not going to be doing anything more, but they're already stacking up. After the Dark Knight, that was
there. We go. That's the one.
That's pretty good. It should have a K though in the
yes.
Yeah, no, but again, One Dark Knight is definitely is definitely a sort of probably a milestone for me in lots of ways. So I'm just going to see how that goes, and then I'm going to kind of take stock and see where I'm at, and see what comes next.
That's just great. Honestly, thank you so much. Yeah, look, Connie Dalton again. Yes, I'm excited for Witches Volume 1. It's great.
Thanks again, Connie.
Look, but honestly, Jock, I can't thank you enough for
no worries.
Allowing us to spend nearly 2 hours of your time taken up.
had a glass of wine. It's absolutely fine.
It's-
Thanks for having me on. It's been really good speaking to you, and thanks so much for the support. And even though, being British, I don't find it easy to accept flattery, but I really appreciate for you having me on and saying nice things about what I do. So thank you guys.
no,
we
honestly,
appreciate you being here, mate. We really do.
it's going to be
Cheers.
great at Thought Bubble. I think, if we all get you a pint and then we just do it again, then I think
We'll do it
and then
after
we
a
can,
skin talk.
and then we can play that game of blindfold Jock and get him to draw
Yeah,
Batman.
yeah,
That'd be great. And look, as the noob said, I think we couldn't have put it anywhere. Fantastic show, guys. Jock, absolute gentleman, and I'll see you at Thought Bubble with his 79p Mars bar.
Yeah. Can you bring me a Mars bar? They're my favourite.
He will.
Yeah,
He
we
will.
probably will.
He'll bring you a multi-pack.
And I'll give you 4 issues of Snow Angels in return.
There we go.
Yeah.
That is an absolute offer. But honestly, Jock, we won't take up any more of your time because you'll probably polish off another bottle of red wine, and we need you to get back to drawing Batman. So, but honestly,
All right, guys.
thank you so much from everyone in the chat for joining us tonight. Thank you to Jock, you absolute legend. Thanks to Andy, Tom, myself. It's been an absolute quality show. And Jock, we will be seeing you at Thought Bubble in November, and we look forward to it. So honestly, thank you so much. It's been another great show, and we look forward to seeing you.
All right, guys. Thanks again.